foremost, what position will you be running for, and then what are the responsibilities of this position?
Sure. So my name's Ann Howard, and I'm running to be our next Travis County Commissioner for Precinct 3. So in the state of Texas, the Constitution designs our county government. Everybody lives in a county when you live in Texas. You might not live in a city, you might not live in a village or a town, but everybody lives in a county. And the county administration, if you will, the leadership, is run by the Commissioner's Court. And it's not a judicial court, but it's just a body of 5 people, the county judge and 4 commissioners. And those commissioners represent geographic areas of Travis County. And I'm running for what we call Precinct 3, which encompasses most of downtown Austin and West Campus of the University of Texas, west of Guadalupe, between Guadalupe and Lamar, and then sort of out west. So Westlake, the Zilker area, Circle C, keep going out 71 to Shady Hollow and Oak Hill, all the way to Hamilton Pool Road and Bee Caves out there. And then it's down 620, so it takes in Lakeway and Canyon Creek. And then we run into Williamson County along 183, but parts of 183 are Travis County. So if you come back towards Austin, like Balcones and Great Hills and Jester Estates, which is down at 360 and 2222, that's Travis County Precinct 3. As well as out in Lago Vista, a little bit of Cedar Park. So the county itself is 1,000 square miles. And even though it's divided into 4 areas, just under half, 40 some odd percent is in Precinct 3, because a few years back, we didn't have near the population we do now in the western parts of the county. So I'm really excited about being the county commissioner for Precinct 3, because it's sort of the hub downtown and West Campus. I went to UT. I lived in a sorority house in West Campus. I lived on campus in a dorm. The campus itself is not Precinct 3. That's Precinct 2, but West Campus is Precinct 3. So I'm excited because it's so vast and it varies so. We've got a lot of the, strong school districts like Westlake and Lake Travis in Precinct 3, as well as other AISD schools. My kids went to Anderson High School. And so we've got cool things like Barton Springs and the Wildflower Center and sort of the gateway to the hill country, if you will, and the natural, the Colorado River. There's lots of concerns, and we can get into this, but where you guys live in Westlake, people living up against the trees and the green belts, lots of concerns about fire. The county commissioners are responsible for emergency preparedness and rescue. So ambulance, EMS, and fire is under the county. We contract some with the city, but it's under the Constitution that the county provides for that. We're also responsible for roads and bridges. We're responsible for access to healthcare for people who don't have other access to healthcare, including mental health care. And we run the jail and the court system. I just think I'm sort of made to be a county commissioner because I love the green stuff, to be outside and to care for creation. But I have a law degree, and I've actually represented kids in the juvenile court in Travis County. And I've run a coalition for 8 years addressing homelessness. And that work caused me to focus a lot on affordable housing and emergency response, crisis response, access to healthcare, and access to jobs. So I'm fired up for it. I'm ready for November 3rd. I'll be honest with you. We can talk a little bit if y'all want to about what it's like to run for office and how do you fund a campaign I'm ready to be done with that part and get on to being the county commissioner. But thanks for having me. I'm excited. I was my student council president in elementary school and middle school, and I was the class president of my class. I graduated in '81 from Bel Air High School. Great, strong debate program there and a strong baseball program. I was very fortunate to go to Bel Air High School. It's in Houston.
Oh, my dad grew up in Houston.
Oh, great. Do you know where he went to high school?
I believe the mascot was Trojan.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We were the Bel Air Cardinals.
We've tried to visit Houston a couple of times, but my mom does not like driving in the area.
It's big.
It is very big.
Yeah.
So for the sort of purposes of the students, why is it important for students to vote?
Oh my gosh. I hope that every, 18-year-old is registered to vote and knows when they're going to vote and at least picks a few races to be informed about. The ballots are always so long, they're very overwhelming. I remember many times wondering, like, who are these judges and why am I voting for a judge, But I really hope folks will, be informed about as much as they can and vote in those races. It's important because it's our future, right? There was a great article in the paper this morning about voting because of the long climate change issues. Sometimes you don't see it, you might not feel it. Other days we know it's so obvious because of the extreme heat. But it's so important that in lots of issues, we have leaders that are open to change and to thinking through, not only history, but what do the experts tell us? What does science tell us? And so I think voting is power. Voting it encourages you. When you go into that booth, I hope you've gone in there with your parents. I always took my kids. I remember waiting in line with my mom at this rec center to vote in Houston. But, the kids love the sticker, but it's also just sort of to become a habit that, yes, you go vote. It's fun to vote. It's what we do in America. We vote. And people have died for this, right? And fought so long so that we have a say, so that we all think a little differently and we want different things and we need to go express that. We see what happens when we don't vote. When we don't vote, we are letting just a few people make decisions that impact us, and I'm looking at a bag hanging on my closet door where Barbara Jordan, if you don't know who Barbara Jordan is, please look her up. But she said, we need to deliver America that's as good as its promise or as great as its promise. We're not done yet with this experiment called, American democracy. And when people vote, they take some ownership about our community. And I think it's not only a privilege to vote, but it's a responsibility to vote.
Yeah, and that's why we've been really pushing this civic engagement project, as you've said, because there are so many high schoolers that don't utilize their right to vote. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what words of advice would you give to first-time voters? Because that experience and registration can seem really intimidating.
Yeah, there's so many. Right now is a great time because there's a lot of phone numbers out there to call for help to register to vote. So just Google it and do it. Get it done. I've heard, there are classes where the teacher's saying, if you want to use this time right now to register to vote, do it. Pull out your phone at home, take the next 5 minutes. And, like if it's sort of a group activity, it gets people doing it. And then they can ask questions, or y'all could do that as a student council or a student body. Almost, what was those things called where everybody would go do push-ups at the same time? You know what I'm talking about? Like you put out a text message and everybody does it. You know, like right now we're going to do this and go to this link and do it, you know. But I think the other advice I would say is, you know, pick some candidate, pick some races, or, you know, they need to understand how long the ballot's going to be. So a really good trick is you can pretty soon, I think they're still working on it because of some decisions that were made yesterday in a court, but you can go online and see your ballot. You can put in your address or something in there, you know, and it will show who you're going to be voting in, who your choices are and what races you're voting in. You know, like most everybody who lives in Westlake, I'll be on your ballot. But there are a few places in Westlake, right down by the country club, the Austin Country Club on the lake, that are not precinct 3, the one I'm running for. They're precinct 2. And so I won't be on those people's ballot. See there, so everybody's ballot, depending on where you live, has different races on it, okay? There's a bunch of city council races or the school board race. They'll be on certain people's ballot and not on others. So the point there is to help them understand how they need to just get educated on their ballot, what they're gonna see. And they can find that on the Travis County Elections website. You can like put in your address or something and it'll show you your ballot. I tend to not, y'all are going to publish this, but if I don't know about a race, I don't usually vote in that race, you know, because I don't like to just guess. So the older I've gotten, the more informed I've tried to be when I go in there, you know, like on different judges are always the hardest ones, these different courts. But if I, for some reason, don't know one, I tend to not vote in it.
Yeah, that's very important because that's why we're making these videos too, because we want our students to know the different candidates.
Yeah, here's another change this year, and since seniors haven't voted before in a presidential, I don't know, maybe there's an old senior who voted, you know, last year or something for something, but this is our first year in Texas, our first presidential election, where it's you have to vote for each race. There's no pulling one lever and that votes for all Republicans or all Democrats. That was called like who knows what that was called, like single.
Straight ticket voting?
Straight ticket voting, there you go. So Felix is right, there's no more straight ticket voting. And where that's important to somebody like me, one, I'm a Democrat, so friends that I have who are Republicans can vote for me because they are gonna be picking and choosing. But what's important is that people vote all the way down the ballot. Like, you know, you can vote for your president, your senator, and your state reps, and then these judges and all that. And people need to have the stamina and the dedication to keep voting because there's a lot of what we call down ballot races, including mine. And then it'll get into like city council and school board. And I don't know that Westlake is having a local, you are having a local school board election. I don't know about
yes.
City council. So we need to drive people down the ballot.
And you touched on this earlier, but why is it important to participate in local elections?
Oh my God, we've seen during COVID for sure that local government is sort of where it's at, right? I mean, we saw with COVID immediately, you know, Mayor Steve Adler working side by side with the county judge, Sarah Eckhart, to, you know, create a plan and put forth safety measures. I'm sure the mayor of Westlake created some kind of safety measures, you know. At some point we all did what the county said, you know, but so it's important because our lives on the daily basis are most affected by local happenings and leadership and the tone and the partnerships that our local officials can create. You know, the way we get better roads in our community is by drawing down federal dollars, and that can flow there. And we want that money to fix the roads in our community, but yet we live in a hot mess of a big region with other counties, and it's important that we elect people who can get along and build relationships, so that we benefit.
Now, do you advise voters to stay at home and do the mail-in ballot, or actually go to the polls and vote at the polls?
Well, I don't have a reason to get to stay home. You know, in Texas, we have allowances for certain folks to vote by mail. Not all of us, and we tried that this year, and the court said no. So technically, right now, you can vote by mail if you're over the age of 65. I'm not there yet. Or if you have a disability that is impacted your concern about going to the vote, or if you're in the military, or you're going to be out of town, or if you're in jail. And so what we're asking folks who have that ability to vote by mail is they should go ahead and do that, because that's going to free up the lines for the rest of us and for new voters who we want to encourage them to vote. We don't want young people or first-time voters or people that have been sketchy about it, you know, like, why should I vote? Okay, I'll go. And then they see a long line, they might get turned off. And so the one way to keep those lines as short as possible is to have as many people as possible voting by mail. So I think you got to do, what's important is that you vote, and you got to figure it out. That's why people have been pushing, you know, create a plan right now. How are you going to vote? By, you know, whether by mail or where are you going to go vote? The voting early is also beautiful because it allows you to, you know, there's just more of a runway. Oh, I could do it today. Oh my gosh, I'm going to go to a ball game today. I can do it tomorrow. Oh, I don't have any gas tomorrow. You know, like it's a long period of time. Trust me, as a candidate, this early voting stuff, because I try to go to the voting polls and hold up my sign and wave to people and stuff, and it goes on for days. It's pretty crazy.
I guess pivoting more towards your campaign, how have your past experiences prepared you for the position that you're running for?
Yeah, I think for one, living here for a long time, I've been here about 27, 28 years, has created a sense of commitment to my community. And my degrees from the University of Texas are in sociology, public affairs, and law. And the motivation for all of that study was community and helping people. I was very motivated as a young person to help children and families, and sort of through our governmental systems that impact families, schools, juvenile court. And, you know, so rolling forward, I've now had the experience of raising a family here and seeing how things work, and running a nonprofit for 8 years that was a coalition of about 50 entities. So really hearing and how all of those different nonprofits work and interact with the private sector, with the faith community, with businesses, with just individuals, and with foundations, you know, with money, and then with government. And because of the work I was doing, it touched on healthcare and housing and law enforcement and employment. And so that has really given me a fantastic view, sort of, so to speak, of how our community works and doesn't work. I also, there's this interesting dynamic. You know, my job was to try to get more people into housing. So to create more affordable housing, to draw down federal dollars to help pay for rent or healthcare or housing or create jobs. And so I was welcome sort of at the highest level of engagement in our community. I worked with elected officials. I worked with CEOs. I spoke at conferences on the West Coast, on the East Coast. I even was flown to Hawaii to talk about our work in Austin. And yet I was focused on a subject matter where I was an advocate for people who were really down and out. And so it was sort of like this, I don't know if paradox is the right word, but I had sort of both things going. I had to sort of get dressed up to go to work because I would probably hang out with some fancy people and make the case for a $50,000 grant or something, but I might also be talking to folks under an overpass. And so, or visiting at the jail to talk about, why are y'all dropping off people on the street? It's just, our community is complicated and it's fascinating. And so I bring to this job sort of all of that. And energy, I have a lot of fun, working with people. I would love to come teach one of your classes, I would go to the University of Texas and talk about my work. One of the folks on my board of directors is the president of Concordia University out off of 620. I'm sort of rambling just to say that, I've had a full life, if you will, and I'm bringing all of that to this county commissioner role in a really spooky time to be in public office. I think there's nothing lost on me that this is going to be hard, and this is a sense of the responsibility I feel about the decisions we're going to have to make. And in a time when our country is divided about issues I care about. And so I think it's really a privilege, but it's also like, to whom much is given, much is expected. And I'm a little anxious about that.
So like touching on some of the issues that you were talking about, like what are some of your like big initiatives and how will those benefit the community?
Yeah. So the first statement I posted on my website was about justice reform. And through my work, whether as a sociology student at UT, I worked with kids on probation. And then I worked for Senator Joe Biden on the Senate Judiciary Committee on juvenile justice work. This was back in the late 80s when he was the senator, and I was a lonely little staffing attorney. Or then all my work, as a nonprofit leader, I saw the impacts of incarceration. And, and then, I've learned a lot about about discrimination, about data that shows us there's an overrepresentation in our, jails across this country of people of color. There's an overrepresentation in the homeless population in Austin, Texas. Almost 40% of the people experiencing homelessness are African American, but only about 8% of the people in Travis County are African American. Why is that? And so it was important to me to put that statement up there, that I want to make sure, we reduce incarceration as best we can. But I'm not talking about making a community less safe. I'm a mom. At the time I wrote that, I was still a daughter, and I'm a woman. And I want to feel safe walking down the street. I now live right near the University of Texas, and I want to be able to walk on campus. I want to be able to walk in West Campus. I want to be able to walk downtown and not be worried about my safety, And so I think there's room to make our community safer, but to make sure we're there, it's safer for everybody and not just people who look like me. So justice reform is a big one, and I think I'm well suited to the conversation. I've got enough experience that I can feel it in my heart, but I also can listen and help, I think, broker sort of progress on that issue. A second statement I put up is about saving the environment in climate change. Tomorrow I'm going to make a little video about climate change and fire and flooding. We see this, it's just all around us, right? And we've got to make sure that that we're meeting our responsibility around preventing wildfire and being able to respond to it when it happens. It was about 10 years ago that Bastrop had so many acres go up in smoke. They recently had another fire there. We had a fire in the western parts of the county that might have touched on Westlake and like the River Place and Steiner Ranch. I think it was Steiner Ranch. And so the way we fund firefighters in the state really is it's through also geographic jurisdictions, and they're funded by commercial property tax of that jurisdiction. And so certain emergency service districts have a lot more money than others. And that might be fine because the commercial property needs protecting, and you can sort of, if you think about if you've got a big mall and a bunch of stores and you're generating taxes, and we need to have firefighters who can protect that mall, sort of, it sort of should be relational. The amount of commercial property tax can help fund the fire district. But think about all the green belts and a more rural community. If they don't have quite the tax base, do they have the state-of-the-art material, equipment and all to help protect us? Because that fire ain't gonna care what the jurisdiction is, and what is our plan? And if you own a bunch of property, but you're 80 years old and you haven't cleared the brush, or made sure there's fire breaks, maybe we need to do that on your property. So I'm not a fire expert. I don't need to pretend to be one, but it's so important right now. And back when I started this campaign, Australia was having a lot of wildfire, and they, said over and over again, we knew this could happen and we didn't take action. And I don't want that to happen on my watch, where we say we knew this could happen and we didn't take action. Drinking water's a big deal. We really live in a big mega drought, here in Texas, and we've experienced worse periods of drought or periods of more plentiful rainfall. But we need to be mindful of our water supply. And as we continue to develop land, what are we doing to the aquifer and the zones underneath and the water? So we can't stop development, but we can sure make sure it's smart development and work to protect our water sources. We don't want to be putting wastewater right back into our water sources. I'm really excited about some of the new technology that's allowing buildings, to be, I think it's called One Water, where you can almost be water sufficient and sort of when will we trust that we can, drink our toilet water? I don't know, but you guys can deliver that technology for us so we can reuse our water. They're doing it in cities across, in other parts of the world. And so we can keep learning from that. So those are two, justice and the environment. I think COVID has shown us that, the healthier we are in our own bodies, we can best respond to something like a pandemic, but also the healthier we are with our economy and our justice system and our, access to clean water, to all of that is sort of what I see as the true inoculation to the next pandemic. It's just getting our house in order and making sure all of Austin, all of Travis County, all of Westlake, Lakeway, Lago Vista, Jonestown, you know, that we're all as healthy and strong and sufficient as we can be.
I have a follow-up question. Has the pandemic shifted your initiatives?
Yeah, I think, you know, for a year, I always said fire was the first thing. And I think probably access to healthcare, you know, will be, looms larger for me now. And part of that would be using my advocacy skills at the state capitol to help convince the state of Texas to expand, you know, access to Medicare. So lots of work to be done there to make sure that all of our people have what they need. It's Medicaid, not Medicare.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving us a specific look at all of these initiatives. We'd also like to learn a little bit more about the campaigning process and how you've been a part of it. What has been the most difficult part of running a campaign?
Oh, goodness. Well, I had never run for office before. I had been elected, y'all can use this line now because you're all elected, you know, servants of your peers. You know, I've used a line like, I've never run for public office, but I've been elected by my peers many times to get things done. And it's a good line, you know. And so when you run for office, you have to have help in with a community as big as ours, because there are machines in play, you know. So I'm a Democrat. I wanted to run as a Democrat in the Democratic Party. I'd never done that before. I didn't know many people, as you know, they didn't know me as, oh, Ann Howard's a Democrat. She's in our club. You know, I wasn't in their club. And so I had to meet the people that, you know, make the Democratic Party of Travis County work. And so that was just meeting people, making the time to get to know people that I didn't already know. And then getting them to sort of accept me as a candidate. There were already women, Democrats, that had said they wanted to run for this position. I didn't know that. But one was a former state representative, and one was a woman who had run before and lost, and sort of, you know, I don't know, she was ready to run again. And so I had to go, well, I want to do it, you know. And then another person jumped into our race. So in the Democratic primary last March, there were 4 people. And that was a lot of people to run against. And I really never worried about running against them. I just worried about running for me, you know, or with my own agenda and program. So then I had to hire some people to help me. Back then we were knocking on doors and talking to residents. And so I didn't know how you find those folks, you know, and so, but there are businesses in town that are campaign consultants. And so, and that's a little dicey too, because a lot of the consultants have worked on other campaigns. So I was trying to talk to one, and that person had worked for, you know, somebody else's friend who was an opponent to this person. You know, it's a pretty small industry. And so there's a lot of relationships. And so I had to learn all of that. And then you have to raise money. And to be honest with you, what I've done for about 1.5 years every day is raise money. And this is probably what you think is wrong with politics, is the money, you know? And I think that, like, we don't want our elected officials beholden to special interests, you know? But how am I going to pay people to help me. How am I going to buy that sign right there without money? So I either have to be independently, financially independent to pay for it myself, like Mike Bloomberg was going to do, or I have to have some mechanism to get other people to give me money. And I didn't realize that I would spend like a year of my life raising money, calling people I don't know and asking them, introducing myself. There's nothing illegal or nothing wrong. I'm simply saying, my name's Ann. I want to be your next county commissioner. Here's what I've done. Will you support me? And, will you vote for me? And would you contribute to my campaign? And to win the primary, I had to raise about $225,000. And I raised it and spent it, I'd raise $10,000 and I'd buy signs, and then I have zero. And then I needed to pay, I'd raise a few thousand more dollars and be able to pay the people helping me do something. Then I'd raise a few more dollars. So it's not like I had a bank account and could really set a budget and know what I was going to spend. I had to sort of have a game plan of, these are the things we need to do, and we need to raise the money to do it. So you have to sort of have that confidence and fortitude that it's all going to work. I'm still raising money and people are giving it, each step of the way. So, I mentioned there were 4 candidates in our primary. And remember, this is county commissioner. It's not president or US senator or even your city council person that a lot of people know and hear about. It's for county commissioners who most people don't know anything about them. But they're extremely important and powerful in our community, And so I had to just keep raising money. And I'm so eager not to be doing that. On March 3rd, there were 4 of us. And so you'd think everybody would get, about a quarter. And I got 48% of the vote. I just needed 50% plus 1 vote. And you see how close I got. But I didn't, during the night, the next day, it got to like 48.6, and then it went down, But so I was then in a runoff that should have been like in May. After March 3rd, it should have been in May, but because of COVID, it got pushed to July 14th. So then I spent that whole time raising money because I needed to remind the voters in July that, hey, remember you voted for me, vote for me again, and get them to go vote. Well, we had more people vote in that runoff election, not because it wasn't just county. There were some state rep ones, and there was the big US Senate runoff between MJ Hager and Royce West. But that time I won 65%. So I crushed it. That was really good. But I raised about $80,000 and spent it between March and July. So now I'm raising money again. We've sent out we've printed a card that talks about me that people are putting on doors. And then we're making a little video, and we'll do a piece of mail to some voters. I can't tell you all the strategies because then my opponent will know. But to do these things, think of the mail your house gets, the junk mail. I spend my time raising money to buy junk mail and send it out. But people, it worked, right? People they read that, they saw my tweets, they saw Facebook ads with cute little videos about me. Both newspapers endorsed me, and that was huge. A lot of Democrats rely on the Austin Chronicle. I don't know if you've ever read the Austin Chronicle. It comes out on Thursdays. But so many people, when I was waving to them, like, I'm Ann Howard, vote for me, they'd hold up a list and go, you're on my list. And they got my name from the Austin Chronicle, I'm confident, or from the American Statesman, or from some friends. I was very fortunate that a lot of people, you know, told their friends to vote for me. I think we have a very growingly active Asian community here in Austin, and they aim to grow in, you know, in stature, if you will, in politics. And I've been very fortunate. In Precinct 3, there are, we're home to lots of folks who are Asian, of Asian descent here in, like, out up and down 183, I'm sure Westlake. And so I benefited from their confidence in me and the sharing my name in their community. So that was helpful.
In addition, what was kind of one lesson you'd like to share with us from that whole campaigning experience? I know we touched on a lot.
Yeah, I think to be yourself. You know, if you believe I'm going to do this, I need to do it, I want to do it, I'm going to do it, go forth and give it all you got. And, you know, I was always honest with the public that I was talking to. I never went negative. And I had some people say some things about me that was not true, you know, and I just ignored it. I'd come home and whine about it to my family, but out there, I just ignored it. I tried to just be above their crap, you know, and sort of kill them with kindness and answer the questions. And it's only going to get harder, I think, for, you know, as a candidate, it's sort of one set of, and remember, most of my experience has been as in the primary, which were other Democrats. You know, that's a funny thing. Like, these are the people who we're on the same team. We're just jockeying for position. You know, the race now where I have an opponent from the Republican Party, I think it's because of COVID, and I think it's because of the other elections that are so much more charged and popular. Thank God, you know, the presidential race, we're just not getting much attention. And so, you know, I think it'll be a pretty party line vote. People, you know, and I'm going to win.
Finally, is there anything else you'd like to share with our students at Westlake before we end our interview?
Yeah, well, I want you to vote for me. You know, I am committed to winning, and I think that young people need to feel empowered. When I was a young mom, I was really into this thing called the 40 developmental assets. And it was the things communities need to do to support young people so that they grow and mature feeling good about their role in community and have opportunities to really become who they want to be. And, you know, I would have an open door to young people who want to volunteer or work or network with me to find jobs and internships. You know, I love the opportunities that Westlake students have. And I think your future is, you have a great responsibility in your future because most of you are going to college, you know, and most of you have options about where you might go to college, and what you study and how long you get to be a student. And we need the people in Westlake, Texas, becoming role models for Texas. You know, I had a daughter go to the University of Colorado. I had a daughter go to Columbia in New York City, and my son went to the University of Arkansas. You know, one's a lawyer, one's running a restaurant, and one's a young accountant. And to me, that's just like the basics, like that, those are now tools in their toolbox, right? And they can go do stuff. And so I want the students of Westlake to know that the county government is there to be part of your toolbox. And there's a lot of opportunities to learn through what the county offers. But there's a lot of opportunity for you to get involved and help lead us to become, you know, Austin, Texas is sort of on fire, I hope not fire, but you know, there's so much at stake right here because of the role we play in Central Texas, the fight going on between, you know, state government and between Governor Abbott and Steve Adler, you know, the mayor of Austin. Like, I know this from my own nonprofit work, that I was able to apply for grants across the country and win those grants from nonprofits elsewhere because they've heard about Austin and they know Austin has resources and Austin has challenges. And so, you know, I encourage you to be a part of the solution, and because it's a lot of fun, and then you can go anywhere.